Welcome back to Movies TV Mad and Wednesday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Yes, I have seen the full version of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad at a special screening on Sunday here in Ayia Napa, and I was very pleased to go. So if you wait to the end of the video, I will give you my full reaction, non-spoiler review of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. If you don't want to wait till then, you can just forward it till then. But we've got a lot to talk about because I've got a couple of articles to read. But first we're going to talk about David Ayer's 2016 Suicide Squad, because I think that's important. It really is. 2016 Suicide Squad made around 745 million at the global box office. That's a hell of a lot of money, but it's very rare for a film to do so well in the box office when it's slaughtered by the critics, the media, and many fans. But how did this film make 745 million if everybody hated it? Well, it's simple. Not everybody did hate it. But of course, when the internet hates something, people are not going to come on and admit they like something that's not fashionable to like. There's only one way. 2016 Suicide Squad made 745 million, and that's if it had rewatchability and people kept on going back for second, third, fourth and fifth viewings. There's no question about that. People were very interested about this movie from the very beginning. Now, I think The Suicide Squad is a luxury IP. I really do. I think you have to get your house in order before you start making Suicide Squad movies, and in 2016 DC Live Action hadn't got their house in order. Not in terms of the broader audience and the media. Everyone thought the DCEU was a mess by 2016's Suicide Squad. I also feel, because the Suicide Squad characters are so connected with Batman, I think who's ever in charge of Batman live action must be in charge of Suicide Squad live action. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen within the DCEU, because Matt Reeves may have the Earth 2 Batman, but we really don't know what's happening with Earth 1 Batman. So it's something that maybe James Gunn could be involved with. I don't know if he'd even want to do Batman, if he has the tools in his locker to do Batman. So that's my opinion on that. But anyway, James Gunn has done a Suicide Squad movie, and we will discuss it at the end of the video. What do I think of 2016 Suicide Squad? I really enjoyed the film, and it's interesting because we know that the studio forced David Ayer to rewrite and reshoot the movie. We know that 40 minutes of David's original movie was cut out, that the studio didn't want Steppenwolf to be in there because that's what Zack wanted, because this was all part of the continuing connective tissue of Zack Snyder's DCEU. The studio wasn't interested in having Steppenwolf in a Suicide Squad movie, but it had been discussed and considered to have Black Adam as the villain, which would have been amazing. But, you know, it's exciting in itself that we're getting a standalone Black Adam movie. Credit to the studio for that one. And I think that The Rock had a lot to do with it being a standalone movie, and I appreciate him even more for that. So, everyone assumes that WB and DC were wrong to cut 40 minutes of David's movie out. But here's the thing. The rewritten, reshot Suicide Squad made just under $800 million at the global box office at the end of its run. It was a success. The question you have to ask yourself, are the studio and DC wrong for cutting David's 40 minutes? Or were David's 40 minutes so bad that they had no choice? Let's not forget they cut 30 minutes from Zack Snyder's BVS, and people said they preferred the extended edition. So maybe they were wrong here as well. We will never know. But here's the thing. WB and DC want to make movies for the broader audience. They want to make money. They're a business. They don't want to, you know, pad the egos of auteur directors. But the big mistake they made, they put an auteur director in charge of the whole franchise in Christopher Nolan. So what did he do? He brought on Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder brought on David Ayer. And it goes on and on and on. And that's the problem. And there's no control of it. So the more you allow these auteurs to do their thing, and that's all well and good saying we have auteur directors and we want to give them freedom. But when the ending result isn't what the broader audience want, you have a problem. as a business. So you're working with people that are pulling against you. And that's the problem. And this is why the studio have done what they've done now. Now, a lot of the public are very, very naive. I heard one person say, well, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a result of a director getting creative, artistic freedom and integrity. And that's true, but James Gunn isn't a director that's purposely, pushing away from the studio. He listens, he does what he wants, but also the studio respects him enough because they know he's not going to go to the public and expose every conversation they have with him. And I think James's explanation about David Ayer's movie was perfect, that, the studio is full of human beings with feelings as well. And so, of course, they're going to get frosty when they keep on being criticised. The inception of the DCEU was a very difficult animal because of the way you set it up with Nolan not wanting to craft it because that's what the studio wanted. He brought in Snyder. They didn't want Snyder because they worked with him partially with Watchmen before, and it wasn't a good end result for the audience and for the comic book fans who loved Watchmen. I love Watchmen. I loved BVS and I love Man of Steel. But now I understand that Snyder and even Ayer don't walk on water. It could have been that those 40 minutes from the Suicide Squad were cut out because they were really bad. We already heard an editor saying most of Jared Leto's footage was just not watchable. It was just him waffling on. And we've got an extended edition of the 2016 Suicide Squad, and I think that's probably the only extra stuff that is watchable from Leto. I've loved Jared Leto as an artist and an actor since I saw him in the independent movie Mr. Nobody, and if you haven't seen that movie before, you should definitely go and see it. I liked 2016 Suicide Squad. Is it the best CBM ever? No. But it's entertaining. The group dynamic is very good. And even though a lot of people didn't like Enchantress as the villain, and we all know, even David Ayer admitted this, and this is on him, that the Joker should have been the villain of that movie. Why didn't you do it then, David? But, despite all of that, Enchantress and Rick Flag and June Moon's dynamic was actually very good. And that element actually worked for me, and this is why, Waller has control over Rick Flag, because she has control over June Moon, the woman he loves. So I think it's a very well crafted story. Obviously that's David Ayer's original story unless they changed it. The Joker should have definitely been the villain. But Enchantress is kind of, I suppose, a cartoony type of villain. She doesn't really have a reason for what she's doing, but not all villains have to be Ledger's Joker. And even he doesn't have much of a reason for what he's doing. In fact, he's pretty moustache twirling, Leto's Joker. He's nuts, he's insane, he's great, he's well performed by Ledger, but he doesn't really have a reason for doing what he's doing. Now we know that Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, we see how he becomes the Joker, and we know his motivations. So as much as I love Ledger's Joker, people who criticise like the June Moon Enchantress character, who doesn't seem to have motivations, well June Moon does, but the Enchantress character is just doing things because. But sometimes it's okay to have a moustache twirling villain. It's okay, they don't all have to have great reasons and motivations. Motivations are not always important. But now I go to the opposite with Taskmaster. Now, we don't know her so well, so we don't know her motivations. She would have been better served, as I said yesterday, in a trilogy. So the actual film, Suicide Squad 2016, is highly entertaining. Will Smith as Deadshot is fantastic. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is fantastic. Viola Davis is brilliant as Amanda Waller. Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang is fantastic. We get Batman, that beautiful moment when Deadshot wants to kill Batman and his daughter stands in the way. Beautiful scene. A great scene with the Flash stopping Captain Boomerang, which is actually shot by Zack Snyder. There's some great moments. The great opening line from Waller. Superman changed the world when he flew across the sky. He changed the world again when he didn't. These are great pieces of dialogue. Again, I don't know if that's David Ayer's dialogue or Geoff Johns' dialogue. Look, Geoff Johns made a decision. He didn't like what he saw. He knew what happened with BVS. He spoke about them not being allowed on the set of Man of Steel, and warning them about what they were doing when he did an article with Diane Nelson with the Vulture publication just before Justice League was released. Not that Justice League was any better, but Justice League is a direct result of a studio and a head of a department like Geoff Johns, who's seeing a car crash happening. He can see these are well-made movies, but they're just not what the audience want to see, not the broader audience, not where the disposable income's from. Because after all, as I keep on saying, they are a business. So in fact, Suicide Squad, that was interfered with a great deal, wasn't a bad film and did really, really well. But you can't keep on doing this and get away with it. And they tried it again with Justice League instead of just moving Snyder on. Look, you had two choices with Snyder. You let him finish what he's doing, or you cut your losses. Personally, I would have, as a business person, as someone running the thing, you can tell it hasn't worked, right? You just say, like Disney did with Scott Derrickson and Doctor Strange. Creative differences, we're parting ways. So what happens if you part ways with Snyder after BVS? Because he'd already started making that movie. Well, you don't allow him to do that. But they didn't know the reaction to BVS was going to be so negative. But once you do, you have to say, do you know what? Stop it. Stop what you're doing. Just stop it. I don't care what you've done, what we're giving you. Just stop it. Creative differences. We tell everyone creative differences. I don't think more people would have understood them parting company directly after BVS than waiting, you know, to pretty much make a Justice League movie. And then if you part company with him, then you can bring Joss Whedon in to do whatever he wants with a Justice League movie, to restructure this universe. And Joss Whedon, whatever you say about him, and I don't know the man, and I'm not going to start judging on this video, because this is not what this video is about. This is a Suicide Squad video, because I've seen the Suicide Squad, I've seen James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and we're talking about the first movie. So in fact, Suicide Squad 2016 is a highly entertaining movie that isn't just a great movie in its own rights, or a good solid movie in its own rights, I apologise, but it's actually got connective tissue to BVS and a little bit of Man of Steel. You see Batman, you see The Flash, you hear Superman discussed and his death discussed. The creation of this team is actually a direct consequence of Superman's death. It all makes sense. Already you've got a continuing connective franchise. All these three movies that we've seen, MOS, BVS, Suicide Squad 2016, are connected to each other. Even this reshot movie. So I like the movie, it worked for me, and I like going back to watch it. So now, we have a couple of articles where we're discussing, I think we've got John Cena in an interview saying he wants to fight Black Adam in the DCEU, which is very interesting, seeing that both Cena and Dwayne Johnson are previously a part of WWF or whatever it's called. I think Cena still goes back and does. I think he's doing something right now, actually. John Cena is ready to fight Dwayne Johnson in a DCEU movie. The Suicide Squad's John Cena says he's ready, willing and able to fight former WWE rival Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in a DC Extended Universe movie by Josh Planisi of Screen Rant. The Suicide Squad's John Cena says he's ready to fight former WWE rival Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in a DC Extended Universe movie. Best known for Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, writer-director James Gunn is bringing a very different group of misfits to the DCEU via the Suicide Squad on August the 6th. As a sequel and spiritual reboot to its 2016 counterpart, the Suicide Squad welcomes newcomers to Task Force X, including Cena's douchey Captain America Peacemaker. As seen in various promotional material, Peacemaker doesn't care how many men, women or children he needs to kill in the name of peace, justice and the American way. Both Cena and Gunn are clearly having a lot of fun with the role, as Cena has been wearing his costume everywhere, and Gunn helmed the Peacemaker prequel spin-off series, which will premiere on HBO Max in early 2022. It would seem that Warner Brothers is cementing Peacemaker as part of the larger, upbeat, inconsistent DCEU. If you say so, if you say so. Despite Gunn's not knowing the Suicide Squad's place within it, well, Gunn does know. Actually, Gunn does know where Suicide Squad lies in the DCEU franchise. Listen, if you go and watch every DCEU movie, including the Suicide Squad, it's actually kind of cohesive. They don't all have the connective tissue of MOS, BVS and Suicide Squad have, but they feel like they're in the same world. But of course, just because you're in the same franchise, it doesn't mean every movie needs to look the same. Don't forget, it's worlds within worlds. That's why Walter Hamada wanted to call it the worlds of DC. In an interview with Comic Book, Cena said he thinks a DC-EU confrontation between his Peacemaker and Johnson's Black Adam is inevitable, while admitting his character doesn't really stand a chance against Black Adam. Cena said he'd love to fight his former co-worker on screen down the line. Read Cena's full response when asked about a potential showdown below. "You know me, ready, willing and able, and answering the phone whenever it rings. I'm good," said Cena. "I think that the excitement is starting to build with fans, whether you talk about the conversation of Fast or you talk about now the DC Universe. I don't want to say we're on a crash course and it's inevitable. I want to because I'm a fan, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Tell me what he says." Cena recently wrapping filming on Peacemaker, and Johnson finished Black Adam earlier this month. On top of that, Cena played Dominic Toretto in Vin Diesel's long-lost brother in F9, The Last Saga, a franchise Johnson helped revive, but he has since left behind. Johnson has been attached to the role of Teth Adam, Black Adam, long before Cena ever put a toilet seat on his head. As an Egyptian slave who is granted superpowers by the ancient wizard Shazam even. Black Adam is one of the DC's most powerful characters. Originally, Johnson's character was supposed to cameo in Shazam, but he will instead be introduced in the origin film set for a 2022 release. Peacemaker will explore its titular character's origin story as well. Given Gunn's previous statements regarding the Suicide Squad's death toll, Cena's comments bode well for his character's survival. As Cena and Johnson's careers appear to be on a collision course, it's certainly easy to imagine Peacemaker and Black Adam briefly butting heads. While the former is still all about peace, the latter has a history of being a tyrant. However, both characters kill at will. Black Adam's antics will lead to an encounter with the Justice Society of America and presumably spearhead a new chapter for the DCEU. Whether his film is part of the Snyderverse or not, Johnson has previously expressed the desire to fight Henry Cavill's Superman, who would prove a much fiercer yet less humorous opponent than Cena's Peacemaker. We must stop this obsession with the Snyderverse. We must. We must start framing this as the DCEU Earth 1. And that's what The Rock's Black Adam is a part of, because he's a part of that Shazam universe. And that's a part of the DCEU Earth 1 as well. Henry Cavill is part of Earth 1 as well at this moment in time. So he could absolutely fight Henry Cavill's Superman. I would love Cena's Peacemaker and Black Adam's and The Rock's Black Adam to fight. It will be an almighty fight, and I'd pay to see that. So we're surrounded by the hype of Disney's Jungle Cruise with Emily Blunt and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but they've been obviously praising the director, who is Jaime Collet-Serra. I can never say that name. Is it Jaime, or do you pronounce it? Do you actually pronounce the J? I have no idea, so sorry about that, Mr. Serra. But anyway, The Rock is calling this director and his good friend Hollywood's best kept secret. And he can take the backdrop and the setting of something that's massive and enormous in terms of world building, so you can imagine then what he will do with Black Adam. The Rock and Emily Blunt praised director Jaime Collet-Serra's style and vision. What myself and Hiram saw is exactly what Emily saw, which is someone who is passionate. He's a passionate director. Johnson explained. He comes from an ilk of very talented Spanish filmmakers, and I'll tell you what, the Spanish are very good filmmakers. I'm really looking into independent foreign films because I think this is the future of mainstream cinema, because what's going on in Hollywood and in the UK right now, and even in Australia, I think we're seeing slowly the death of English-speaking entertainment. He comes from an ilk of very talented Spanish filmmakers of this era and time, a generation that's so respected, and also he builds worlds. He does that incredibly well, as you've seen now with Jungle Cruise, and he can take the backdrop and the setting of something that's massive and enormous in terms of world building, and still make it feel these moments feel very, very intimate, which you saw with Emily and I. So you can imagine then what he will do with Black Adam. I've shared so many pictures with Emily on the set of Black Adam. Oh wow, I'm jealous. Emily, WhatsApp me. So many pictures with Emily on set of Black Adam, and it's so gorgeous to look at, Blunt added. Such a spectacle, it's like you will love it. It's so gorgeous, it's really cool. Never a moment wasted by these people to kind of plug something else, but you know, I'm very excited about this director because it sounds like everyone's saying he's made something very, very exciting. And Sarah Sahay, I think her name is, she's finished filming on Black Adam as well, so that's very, very interesting. Can't wait to see Black Adam. Next year is the year of DC. I just can't wait. Please keep me alive until the end of the Flash movie. Then you can kill me. No, don't kill me because there'll be more DC movies. Coming up, my full review and reaction of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. But first, this is an article suggested by superfan Scott Edwards. This is from Heroic Hollywood. The Suicide Squad Jai Courtney wants to be a villain for The Flash. He wants to be the bad guy. Now this is interesting. Does this mean he doesn't get killed off? Well, I know this, of course. Does this mean he doesn't get killed off in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad or not? You'll have to watch it to find out. Because he could be trying to sway you either way, couldn't he? Anyway, this will be a non-spoiler review shortly, so don't worry about that. The Suicide Squad star Jai Courtney wants to play Captain Boomerang as a villain for The Flash in the DC Extended Universe. Following the mixed reception of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice back in 2016, the DC Extended Universe turned into something of a mess. I don't agree. I don't think it is a mess. I don't think it is a mess at all. Obviously, behind the scenes, it's messy, but that shouldn't really worry the audience. Do you like the DCEU movies thus far? If you do, great. If you don't, you don't. One of the projects that was reworked several times over was Ezra Miller's solo film, The Flash, which is said to be based on the Flashpoint storyline and could very well reset the entire DC Extended Universe. That's exactly what's going to happen. One actor from one of the early DCEU projects, however, is still hoping to battle Ezra Miller's version of the character on screen. Jai Courtney first appeared in the DCEU as Captain Boomerang in the first Suicide Squad film and survived the entire movie. In his backstory, it is revealed that Ezra Miller's The Flash was the one who put him in prison during a robbery. He's also one of the 4 characters from the first film to return for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. While speaking to comicbook.com, Courtney revealed that he is ready, willing and able to reprise the role once again as an antagonist for The Flash. I don't know what happened to the Flash film that was going to happen. If it happened, did it get sidelined? I don't know, man. I'm so down. I think it's a great villain for him. They got my number. Let's do it. If that's what people want to see, then I'd be even more stoked to hear it. But any chance to play Boomerang, I'll be there for sure. Awesome, because I love Captain Boomerang, and I think Jai Courtney does a fantastic job. Would you like to see Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang battle Ezra Miller as The Flash? Yes, I would. Are you looking forward to seeing him again in the Suicide Squad? I loved him in the Suicide Squad. Let us know what you think, and that's the article. What's this? Welcome to Belle Reve, the prison with the highest mortality rate in the US, where the worst supervillains are kept. And what is this? It's an article, basically. Yeah, we don't want to read that. Jesus Christ, what was I reading there? Right. Are you ready? Are you ready for my reaction to James Gunn's The Suicide Squad? Right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action! James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is the most funny, insane, dramatic, heartbreaking, fucking violent film I've ever seen. And I loved it. As you know, months and months and months ago, I saw a 90-minute test screen and I loved it. And I'm lucky, I'm glad I didn't spill about it because they really did rework it. This is a proper film, of course. That's just a test screening. It's to get your reactions. But anyway, this is an amazing film. Now, people are, listen, nobody's got a bad word to say about this. Fans like me who have gone to see an initial screening, the critics are giving full, brilliant reviews, positive reviews. This film is going to make a lot of money. Nobody really knows how much. That's why the projection is between 36 and 60 million for an opening weekend in the US. It'd be interesting what kind of opening weekend it does this weekend in the UK. We better keep a lookout for that as well. Now let's talk about the characters who came back from the first film. Let's talk about Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. Everyone from the first film was great in the first film, as I discussed. But they're so much better and more accurate to their comic counterparts in this film. And Amanda Waller is absolutely fantastic. Remember, no spoilers, and I can't tell you spoilers even if I wanted to. But she's as ferocious, as dangerous, as crossing the line as she was in the first film. She is really, really good, and you just love her. I mean, she was born to play Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller is one of my favourite characters in the DC universe. She is so good, and Viola really does her justice. Now let's talk about Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang, probably my favourite from the first film. Out of all this cast, Jai Courtney is on another level, and again, he really pulls it out in this movie. He is so good. And let me just say this about him being in a Flash movie and being the villain of a Flash movie with Ezra Miller's The Flash. It would be amazing. But you know what you could do with the multiverse strategy? He could find himself in another universe, and he could be fighting Grant Gustin's The Flash. He would be an awesome Captain Boomerang. I don't even know if the Flash TV show have ever done a Captain Boomerang. So anyway, so good. Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang is so good, and he molds well with the other characters as well. And so we've got Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag. Now, Rick Flag is a very important character in the comics. Now, in Smallville, he came off very gruff, very kind of gritty and uncompassionate. So he's a lot more different. I mean, even in the first film, there is some kind of relatability to that character. Joel gives us that, but he's more gruff with them. He's threatening to kill them. He pretty much hates Harley in the first film, threatens to kill her. But obviously, I'm not going to tell you anything that happens in this movie, but they flip the relationship with Harley and Rick Flag in this movie. Because it kind of important thing, because with these pre-existing characters, it's important that you link in the fact that they already know each other. So they don't mention the first film in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, but it's pretty obvious that these people know each other. They have history together. So Rick Flag and Harley have a great dynamic together. So he's got more comedy to his character, Rick Flag, but there are some seriousness to his tone, and he's the leader of this group. So very, very interesting. So Joel Kinnaman again delivers a fabulous performance. He's one of my favourite characters in the first film and in this film. So who else have we got? I'm trying to remember who else from the first film. Who am I missing? I can't even remember now. So we've got Viola Davis, Amanda Waller, we've got Jai Courtney, Joel Kinnaman. Who am I missing? Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, of course. I'm just messing with you. So Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, if you're a fan of the animated series, if you're a fan of her comics, if you're a fan of her origins, you'll really love her in this movie. They're a lot more faithful to her in this movie, to her origins, than they were in the first movie, even though I think her first movie performance was fantastic. But this really is off the scale. I remember people saying she wasn't going to play a big part in this movie. That was bollocks, of course. I wouldn't say she's centrally important to the film, but she's there and she plays a big role in the film. That's what I would say about Harley Quinn, and she's absolutely fantastic. So then we go to people like Bloodsport. So Bloodsport has got this big arc in this film where he shot Superman with a kryptonite bullet and put him in the ICU. So that's a big statement to make within a film. So again, no spoilers, but this is something that drives the narrative at times, of course, because it's a big thing to do, and it's a bit of a mysterious thing to do. Well, why did he do it? You'll find out in the movie. But anyway, the whole point is that this character has a daughter, and you know what? I nearly gave away a bloody spoiler. Right, anyway, as you've seen from the trailer, he has a daughter, she's in trouble, and Waller uses that to utilise him joining the new Suicide Squad. You've got Peter Capaldi's Thinker. I mean, yep, oh yes, there's not much I can say about him without spoiling it, but absolutely fantastic. He truly is the Thinker. Now, James Gunn has said he's not really a copy and pasted version of the Thinker from the comics, but he does that. He does feel like that Thinker to me. I really like Peter Capaldi's performance. So Something very special. As soon as I heard Capaldi was going to be in it, I was shocked, stunned and excited. What a coup James Gunn pulled off there. And so you got people, I mean, listen, the character you're really going to love, and everybody's saying it, is Ratcatcher 2, played by Danielle Melchior. She's absolutely brilliant in reality, she's fantastic on social media, and she's even better in the film. What a performance, because this performance needs her to be holding a bloody rat. And that's difficult, because I could never do that, no matter how much money, what movie, what director I would be working with, and what movie I would be in. There's no way I would do it. But she is absolutely the heart of this movie. And it's interesting, because if you look at the first Suicide Squad, is there a heart of that movie? I suppose it is the June Moon Rick Flag thing, but this is so much more heartfelt. And so she is a very important character, a character that you're going to fall in love with. And, you know, people like David Dastmalchian's Polka Dot Man, you know, just a lovely little journey for that character as far as I'm concerned, because this is a character who doesn't feel comfortable within himself. And slowly but surely you see this kind of character story and him becoming, I suppose, maybe slightly happier by the end of the movie. Or on the way to the end of the movie, without giving anything away. And so what you get here, you get a bunch of new characters, 4 older characters, and they mold well together. Now, earlier on we were talking about John Cena's Peacemaker. This is an absolutely fantastic performance. This is John's best performance of his career. It really is, and he pulls it off. And I cannot, from what I saw in this film, I can't wait to see him in Peacemaker. Will he be let loose in the outer DCEU, in that franchise, which is very exciting as well. But he is great. He's everything he's told us he's going to be. He's a douchey Captain America. He will kill anyone for peace's sake. And he means that. And he's a very funny character, but he has got some dark edges and elements to him. And I can't wait to see those chiseled out as well and kind of developed in the Peacemaker series. This is what I'm talking about, the difference between what DC are doing with HBO Max and what Disney Plus are doing with Marvel. The MCU stuff just seems to be on there to keep us on a line to the movies. They seem to be doing something quite special. If Peacemaker is to be, you know, when I look at Peacemaker, when I think of Peacemaker, the potential of that show is going to be sensational. It's only a few months away. In fact, after James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker will be the next project. Then it will be the Batman. It's really exciting. So many DC pieces of DC live action to look forward to. So John Cena's Peacemaker is everything and more you imagine him to be. And just going back to Bloodsport, yeah, Idris Elba, brilliant performance. Really, look, there isn't a bad performance in this movie. So then you've got, what's his name? What, TDK? Nathan Fillion as TDK. So this character may be not centrally doing much in this movie, but he is, from what you look, getting Nathan Fillion in DC is amazing, and I hope we can keep him. Nathan Fillion is a great actor, of course, and we all love him. And it's interesting his connections to Joss Whedon as well. But at the end of the day, he's a great actor, he's a big name, and it was great to see him in this film. As you can probably tell, he's not a huge part of the movie, but he's there, and you get some laughs from him as well, which is cool. So James purposely set some of these characters up as comedy elements, but some of them are comedy elements and they're there for dramatic purposes as well. So what about, I know I've missed out a lot of characters, but I don't want to give anything away. Let's talk about the villain of this film, Starro, right? Starro is sensational. He is fucking huge. He does something nuts that we actually discussed from an article earlier this week, which is brilliant. But I like Starro. Some people don't like the villain of this movie, right? But I love Starro. I haven't got something in my eye, I'm just winking. Right. So Starro is just a unique villain. And he scared the shit out of James Gunn when he used to read him in the comics. But I like Starro in this film, and it works. the character works. It works for this. It wouldn't work in another film, but it works in this. It really does. Because you need such a threat to cause all this panic and chaos. And as you already know, he's part of an experiment. So there's other commentary there with that as well. So he's not General Zod, he's not Ledger's Joker, but he's very good. He fits well with what they want to do. But you're going to have to watch the film. Now, I'm not going to tell you what the post-credit scene was. The post-credit scene is, yes, I love the post-credit scene. Wait to the end of the movie. Wait to the end of the movie, and I hope DC put post-credit scenes on every movies these days. So, in summary, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a bright, explosive, compelling, bloody, dramatic film. It's full of originality, even though it's inspired by films like The Dirty Dozen, and it has the element of killing characters and things like that. It's a war movie, but everything else is fucking original. This is, I think, look, as I said before, people have called this the best DCEU movie ever made. I will never put films at the moment on that bracket, because no matter how much I love this film, and I love James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, there's Man of Steel, there's BVS, there's Aquaman, you know, there's films like that I really love. So it's difficult, just Zack Snyder's Justice League, so it's difficult for me to say this is the best, but it's definitely the best James Gunn film. Definitely. Better than any of his catalogue of movies. This is top of his CV. It is an amazing film. And you know, again, I must give credit to the much maligned Walter Hamada, who went out there, dropped a phone call to James Gunn when he was fired by Disney, begged Toby Emmerich to let him do this, and he did. They brought on James Gunn. James Gunn is a winner, because James Gunn wants to entertain you and me, the audience. That's his only agenda. But he wants to do it his own way. Of course he does. And he does in this movie. James Gunn will be back for more. The critics love him. The people love him. People have forgiven him for those tweets. Those tweets were terrible. But I don't think he deserved his career destroyed for it. Because we all say dumb shit. We all do. But we live in an era where we're supposed to be perfect. We're always supposed to say the right thing. We're sorry, we're fucking human beings. So Walter Hamada did the right thing here. Walter Hamada is making the right decisions for the future of this franchise. Because don't forget, in the inception of the DCEU, this franchise was run by a director. You need a proper producer with production experience, bureaucratically, but with ideas as well. Walter Hamada is that man, because he can implement the right people at the right time. Implementing James Gunn to do his own Suicide Squad movie, or saying, here, do whatever the fuck you want because you're a genius, was the right move. And it's going to pay off. Matt Reeves doing the Batman was actually a Jeff Johns decision. Right move. Black Adam, the right move. Aquaman 2, James Wan is a genius. And Andy Muschietti was someone I wasn't sure about because he came from New Line Cinema with a very small CV. But as we can see, I think there's lots of building blocks to the Flash movie that are really going to excite you and change the game. So we are really in a great position. And the Suicide Squad, people who have doubts about the future of the DCEU, go watch the Suicide Squad. Go and watch James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and you will love it. It's so difficult to talk about a film but not be able to talk about the film. I'm not very proficient in doing that, but I hope I've drawn a picture for you that this film is worth seeing. See it on the biggest fucking screen. And if you can't afford it but you live in the States, watch it on HBO Max. I'm very, very grateful that I was able to see this special screening. I didn't know how I was going to watch this, to be honest with you. Not out to the 5th of August here in Cyprus. I do have issues with caring for my father. I found someone to look over him while I went out on Sunday. So I'm very, very happy about that. I'm happy that I got to see this movie. And James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is the beginning of a new era. A better era. Because as much as I love Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, which is one of my favourite CBMs of all time, you need cohesion. You need the studio and the people making the films on the same page. Now, they can argue, they can pull in different directions, but in the end, It can't be a fucking war, as it was with Snyder and Nolan. No. So this is the right decision, and James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a fucking fantastic movie. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep it DC, and fuck Marvel.